Hello, Philip Mountrose and Jane Mountrose here on the Soulful Living Show. We provide timely keys each week for open minded people like you. We have 3 decades of experience, and today we're going to help you empower yourself by realizing your dreams. A simple, profound, and complex, actually, strategy as well as simple, but it has a lot of depth to it. And we're part of Awakenings Institute, a nonprofit organization devoted to making the world a more loving place. And today, as I mentioned, empowering yourself to realize your dreams. Jane?
Yeah, it's a great subject. It takes me back to many things that we've learned on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And really we wanted to talk about self-empowerment today because it's a key element of the spiritual journey for all of us. We start, if you could go way back to wherever we start on the journey, we start as part of the herd of humanity, you could say, and we're relying on other people, usually some kind of authorities around us, to tell us what to do and how to do it and how to feel about ourselves even. Many of us, and probably almost all of us, are influenced to one degree or another by the perception that our parents have shared about us, and it isn't always favorable. It
Right.
really varies, right? But at some point we wake up and see that it's really like the blind leading the blind, that actually this doesn't make any sense to be just following what someone else tells you is right for you. And we realize that we can step out of the herd onto our own path. And it's like I see this herd of humanity in a fence, and we kind of jump over the fence and go out into the wilderness,
Right.
it's a really wonderful thing. It also can be very confusing because when we're out in the wilderness, we have only ourselves to rely on. We no longer have the authorities who are back, back in the herd of humanity, and they really can't help us where we are. We can find people who can help us, but those aren't the people. So it's an exciting time. We understand that we can make our own decisions, and it's a time when people start to do things that may have been considered not typical for them. You might start to dress differently. You might start, like, go out and learn how to paint or something. Something, just it could be anything that happens to start to express your uniqueness.
Yeah,
I think that we have that realization. But
go on a
the
trip or maybe start a new program, a new learning.
Right. And the problem is it's easy to get confused and lost along the way because there is no roadmap for it. In At least not in the herd of humanity. We actually have one we have developed for ourselves and our students. So we use a lot of tools like coaching wheels, which we're going to share a coaching wheel with you today, because they help us to achieve clarity on where we need to focus. If you look at the elements on a wheel like this, um, which I think Philip is, there it is.
Yeah.
um, you can start to consider where you have strengths and where you really need to focus to balance your life, and also to optimize your opportunity. We're all here to live fully and also to learn and grow. And so I think it helps to have kind of a map. And this may not include everything that you think about. When you look at it, you might think, well, there's something else. But that is actually the coaching wheel helping you to be clear. The elements that we put on are important elements, and we still actually look at them for ourselves, starting generally with the internal elements. And if you look at them, you can see pretty clearly self-care is really important, because if you don't have any energy to do things, then you're not going to be able to get anywhere when you're out in the wilderness like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are others. I wanted to give Philip a chance to come in and give his perspective too. Um, and for us as coaches, trainers, and practitioners, we know that we have to be our best to be of value to people. So it's not actually, that isn't self-care, and health and vitality are not, it's not like something, when I have time, I'm going to take care of myself. It's like, this is a foundation for creating the life that we want.
Right. Did we want to start with the vibrational spiritual connection on the wheel there, Jane?
Well, we can talk about any of the what I guess I didn't mention is there are internal elements and external elements on the wheel. And the internal elements really are, if self empowerment itself is is a is really a foundation. The internal elements are right at the base of the foundation. These are the things that you really need to have to support you, so that when you actually are out doing things and manifesting things, that you have the right energy going.
And to clarify, a good division in this is internal and external elements as we mapped out here. But the elements are not in a chronological order. There's really not like you do 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't do these in succession. So they all interconnect and overlap, of course, because life
Right.
is very complex, just to be clear on that. So where did you want to start, Jane?
Wherever you can talk about any wherever you want to
I'm going to
go
start with
on the wheel.
vibration, spiritual connection, just to go in order to make sure we cover them all. As I said, they're not chronological, and it may take a while before you actually become more conscious of your spiritual connection, whereas self-care is something you want to, have kind of throughout your life to set the stages. But
Hmm.
since it's up there on the top, we'll start with vibration, spiritual connection. You want to realize that you are a spiritual being having a human experience. We forget that with the mirage and the onslaught of all the physical and emotional things we're dealing with every day. And that spiritual connection may be just a timeout, a way to center yourself, a way to remember that you're part of something bigger, that you're here for a reason, that you have a sense of something bigger than just your physical life, moment to moment, and all the things to get done and to survive. So it's going beyond survival. You're here to, certainly you need to survive, but how to thrive, how to connect, what you're here for. So we do a soul centering, a variety of soul centerings, which we teach in our different programs, including our upcoming coach and healer program at this time. And the just for some links for people, the soul centering, they can visit our website and go to, I'll give you abbreviated websites here to remember them. tinyurl.com/soul-center, tinyurl.com/soul-center, which soul centering, and the many ways we developed to do that, which is really just feeling your heart and soul in the moment in different ways. And there's different ways to access that, is a key to your soul, your dream. It's interesting to realize your dreams. It needs to be something that's very soulful, because you realize your dreams. Well, I won the lottery. My dream is to be rich. Is that really what your dream is? Now I have a pile of money. As we know, people who have a lot of money are often even not very happy or fulfilled unless they put it to a dream. It's connected to a dream. And what is a dream? It means you have that spiritual connection connecting you with everything. And different elements in this wheel will empower you, as we will about to share.
Right. Yeah.
Jane?
For us, I mean, I think spiritual connection is very relevant. Philip and I met years ago, many years ago, in a spiritual organization where the leader was the person who had the truth, and everybody followed the leader, and the leader was pretty much the dictator. I mean, we wore the clothes the
Yeah.
leader wanted us to wear. We said the things the leader wanted us to say. It was very straightforward and mapped out for us. And at a certain point, we realized, and I think this is a stage in our development, each of us, we realized, well, if he can have the truth, why is it we can't have the truth? And that was a question that set us. I think that actually is the one where then we jumped over the fence and out of that organization, which was spiritual. We were spiritual. We just weren't self-empowered. So we jumped over the fence. We went out on our own, and the process Philip was telling you about, the soul centering process, is what we found. It took us actually some years to find it. We found a lot of very abstract, well, you start to breathe and you connect, and you
Mm.
feel that spiritual energy, and
Mm.
it can be very iffy. It's like, how do I really know if this is it? Right. And
Amorphous.
the soul centering process, because you're connected with the love and truth in your heart. And love really is the key, because love is connectedness. And when you're vibrating love, you're vibrating connectedness to a higher source that is, for you, your source of wisdom. So as you're going off, into the wilderness, you have your own guidance to lead you and to help you to understand then what your purpose is and who you really are. I think that's so important. So I do think that one that's a huge key. And self-care. I mean,
Hmm.
self-care is just as important, as is energetic environment, which we mean the energy in the places where you find yourself or place yourself, like your home, your car, your work environment, if you work outside of the home, all of the places where you're uh, traveling to, you're picking up energy. And if you're wanting to hold a nice high vibration, which is really the goal as a foundation also, then you want to be aware of your environment, how it's impacting you, along with relationships. That's why we put relationships in there. And it is
Right.
interesting. There's that idea that the path narrows, and it does. You have to be more and more intentional as you go along with all of these things.
Right. And I'll just come back and go into the self-care, give a few particulars here. Um, a lot of people we talk to, when, especially as you, at a certain point, your body may break down due also to traumas in the way you've lived your life, and that's part of life, as we know. And part of this is developing compassion and for yourself as well as others. And at a certain point, you have to realize that there's sort of a routine, like what your life looks like every day. Not that it has to be, quote, perfect, but I mean, the other day, uh, I didn't get much sleep. Our dogs got up in the middle of the night and things happened. And the next day I was kind of shot. I mean, I was sort of like a hangover. Just,
Right.
and if you continually not get enough sleep, everything else may be going, quote, well, or,
Could
you
go
might be
well.
handling it, but
Maybe.
but it's going to
Right.
undermine virtually everything. There's no substitute for sleep as one part of self-care, for example, which many people are deficient in. Diet, what is the right diet for you? What are the foods that make you feel good? What are the ones that you need to avoid? Exercise and movement is a key part of life. I don't like to exercise and move. Yes, some people don't, but do you like to be healthy and live life fully and
Hmm.
empower yourself? So
Right.
sometimes you have to kind of go a little bit and discipline yourself, go out of your way. It's not always about doing, quote, what is easy and comfortable and you're used to. And sometimes establishing these routines, maybe even throughout your life, you may never feel like exercise is an easy thing for you to do, but you also want to be energized and live fully and be there for all the rest.
Hmm. Right. Right. And I'm like that. I'm more of an emoting type of a person. I enjoy it. I'm a people person. I enjoy being with people and
Right.
doing more emotional things, and exercise is not at the top of my list of things that I enjoy doing. But for that reason, actually, I do it first thing in the morning.
Hmm.
And I have breakfast first because I want to have the nutrition to support me as my muscles are being challenged. And then I exercise, and then I get dressed, and it it really works for me because I know I have to do it. Right away I've succeeded at this thing that I have to do, um, and I feel good. It does actually make me feel better, obviously. So that's one part of that.
Hmm.
And all of these things, all of these internal elements come together to make you feel vibrantly alive.
Hmm.
Which is what we want. If you feel you're here for a reason, and you're moving forward on the spiritual journey, gosh, there's just so much that's available, and then you have to be available for it.
Right. And just one other thing on self care is being aware of circadian rhythms. That's sunlight and dark. In other words, to try to get out in the sun when the sunlight comes up and to start to wind down and retire when the evening comes on, just the natural rhythms of things, and that's something we can easily get out of sort with, and it catches up on us and it affects us in many ways quite profoundly.
Mm-hmm. Right. Overall, also, self-empowerment is it's part of our mental kind of our mental aspect, and which is really about our beliefs and attitudes. So it might be, for instance, you might think, well, I'm so busy, I don't have time for myself. That ultimately is a belief. You have to start carving out, even if you carve out little pieces of time, to start showing yourself that you can. And that's why this wheel is really valuable, because you can start to look at where it is that you need to focus and
Right,
believe that you can. If your relationships, if you have people in your life who are giving you a hard time, you have to start by believing that it can change, and then taking steps, small steps, often in the direction of what you want.
right. Yeah, and it's often said that people who are actually very busy, uh, who are very productive, or actually spend time relaxing. There's a book called Rest that's about that. The most productive people have routines, highly productive, but also do a lot of resting, vacation, taking breaks,
And playing,
and playing.
if we go over, are we ready to go into the external elements?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. So, and this is something that we also focus on a lot. I have actually a story I can tell in a bit about just something that occurred to me recently, because we're always refining and just making it easier to be, fully present and available in the moment. So there's rest or time out, having time, to chill or whatever you want to call it, like just being able to maybe not exercise, but take a walk in the park. Or something I really like to do is just take shop or go shopping. I find that very relaxing, looking at pretty things, walking around, taking my time, and I just enjoy that. That's restful for me. Lifelong learning and growing, that's part of that, the lifelong learning. Recreation and play. So there are, that's another part of it, just doing things that are playful and fun. And then of course, it's kind of like the main course, whatever our work and life purpose are, and bringing that all of those things more into harmony with the truth of who we are, as with the internal items.
Hmm. And it seems like a lot, but as you kind of take, I think everyone's more or less aware of at least some of these. And if you
Quiet.
start to realize, where what you're doing well on, just keep that in mind, and then what you maybe need to look into more. A lot of people need more rest and time out as part of the self-care. It's another thing about, I need to take a break. I need to breathe. I like to just walk outside. I like to look at the sky. Little things. It can be very little.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's often missed. We often think, well, this is a big thing. It's actually a lot of little things. Most things in life are very small steps. So, like for having your energetic environment, we talked about internally, just look around where you are right now. Does it feel like it's a positive or a negative? What could be, if it's a negative, or what could improve? My desk here, could I straighten out a few papers? Wow, that's just better right now. That's
Mm-hmm.
something very small.
Right, your energetic environment. Now I make a point every day, at the end of the day, I clear off my desk, so when I sit down at it in the morning, I have a nice, clean, pleasant impression, rather than a bunch of papers or things left over from the day before.
And
Just there are so many of those simple things that really do make a difference.
the little things add up, and they're
Right.
cumulative, and they make the trajectory of your life. So if you keep going, say with a messy desk, for example, what is that going to cost you in loss of time, energy, your mood, uh, losing things maybe, or maybe not being productive and creative like you could with everything in order. So you just add it up over a lifetime, and it adds up. And so if you look at the little things, like this is a small thing, straightening out my desk. I mean, who cares? Well, I'm messy and my hair's not combed. Who cares? So my clothes don't match. Little things. Well, you do this partly for yourself and for others. It's nice to help others, if they have a nice impression, but not out of vanity, but just to being your best. And
Right.
that's empowering.
Right. Well, and the truth is also that the soul responds to
Hmm.
higher vibrations.
Right.
So if you want your soul to be present in your life, in other words, to have your own truth be present in your life, the truth of who you are be present in your life, then these things are all important because your soul is not going to want to be around.
Right.
You're when if you're kind of wallowing around in a heap of trash or something in your house,
Right.
the soul, it's going to be much harder for the soul to be present. So that it's interesting.
Right.
And I wanted to share this little story about, because this was fairly recently. I was realizing we're in a really a very wonderful position, and we feel very grateful to be in the position that we're in because we can really determine our own time and our own what we do with it. We have the funds to be able to travel. We're just very blessed. And at the same time, that doesn't mean, like Philip was saying, just if you just have all the resources, and even if you have everything possible for you to create it the way you want, it doesn't mean that you don't have bad habits from the past that are holding you up. And of course, one of our specialties is healing. We're not going to go specifically into that right now, but a lot of times we need to heal things from the past. We also need to just recognize them. And we were just talking about this recently because I realized that I wasn't enjoying my time out as much as I could because I was judging myself like I shouldn't want it, like I shouldn't allow that for myself. But then if I don't allow that, I'm not able to enjoy the things that relate to purpose either, because then I feel everything starts to kind of go off kilter a little bit because I don't feel like I can have the time I need for myself. And I think we all need, on a spiritual journey, we all need just time for ourselves, whether it's shopping or when I was an architect, I started driving when I would go to work. I started driving. This was when I wasn't enjoying being an architect anymore, and we were transitioning. I would on the way to work, I would stop at a really nice park on the way and walk around this little lake. And there were birds and ducks and geese, and it was just very peaceful and pleasant. It was a little time out just as I was starting the day, so I was giving myself some space before I went into this place where actually it was my service in a way for for the day. Um, and I still have to be watchful of that, of allowing myself the time I need. Uh, Philip and I were in a kind of a phase, you might say, too, where we're focusing a lot on learning new things, where a lot more things that are for us personally, and also things that are for us personally often they end up reflected in our work too. Um, but that we have to allow ourselves that time and not resent or feel like we don't deserve to have that time for ourselves, which we really do. So i I think if you look at those four elements and where the balance is, it is very interesting when you consider where your time is going and why it is, and what you feel you deserve, because you deserve all good things. You deserve for all of these things to move more and more in the direction you want them to go. Not that it's going to be perfect. It's not about perfection. It's about living fully.
Yeah. Adding to what Jane said is that we have a lot of programming that can
Yeah.
be quite deep and undermining us. Uh, like Jane was saying, like, why can't that? I'm taking a break, but I can't really fully enjoy it because something is telling me I shouldn't be resting. I'm missing out. I'm not doing my obligations. What I was. But where does that come from? Remember a person I was helping said, I should, and I've heard this many times, I should be much more successful by now.
Right.
I paused. I said, well, according to whom? Where's that written? Where's the standard that you're living up to?
Right. And what is success?
What is? So he
That's
didn't,
another
he
thing.
that kind of paused, stopped him in his tracks, really made him reflect on, what, and he's living his life by this kind of fear and momentum and these sort of imaginary moving goalposts. uh,
Right. And feeling bad about himself because
yeah,
of that.
right.
And all of this, by the way, all of us are magnificent spiritual beings. So if you're looking at this or something like this and you start to feel like there's something wrong with you, or which I used to feel a lot like there's something wrong with me. Um, if you're looking at it and feeling like, again, another one or people tell us often is, I wish I had woken up sooner. I wasted so much time. Well, who says that? What was it you needed to learn to get to where you are now?
Yeah, who wrote that rule?
Right. I
Where is that written?
know. Yeah.
So that's
It's
obviously coming
really
from
fascinating.
society and parents and programming. That's where we're getting. In other words, people, parents who were programmed by other people, schools, government, etc. All these institutions tell us this is the way to be. This is the way to be successful. You should do this, and then we begin to take it as a truth, as like this is true. I'm either living up to this standard by whatever, whoever, or not. And that's very subjective, even that. And then you can never really succeed because there's always sort of a greater external accomplishment you could make, so you're never there, so you're always falling short.
Right. Right. Well, when Philip and when we were talking about allowing time for rest and allowing time
Mm-hmm.
for learning for ourselves, um, the thing that occurred to me too was my parents always said they were so busy. Like, I have so many things to do. I'm so busy. Even when they were getting really old and they weren't really doing much of anything. My father was an alcoholic and all he was doing was drinking all day. My mother actually, she had dementia too at the end, but um, it was like never being able to feel good about yourself because you're never doing enough. And I think that's very common one.
Right, right. Um, so I don't know, the wheel. There's some specific things I guess I could look at the wheel for a moment and go into a few specific things, uh, just to point out. I mean, there's obviously much. We teach a whole program based on these kind of things for months, but it's nice to touch on a little bit of it more here specifically. We talked about resting and taking time out. Lifelong learning. People who grow are lifelong learners. That, keep that in mind. That keeps you alive. That keeps you renewed. What is interesting, and there's so much information and ways. I like to listen to podcasts. There's many ways to do it, through audios, videos, different platforms. We're in a fortunate age that way. Yeah. And be discerning, though. What is furthering you too. Don't just be random and whatever pops up, follow it. See if it's something that seems to be empowering.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I think a lot of people are afraid to do anything because they think they'll make a mistake. And
Yeah.
I think you have to look at it like, well, I'm doing the best I can in the moment, and whatever I do, I'm going to learn something from it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and what I was actually aiming for a little bit ago that I didn't quite get there is, as magnificent spiritual beings, it's never about you not being worthy or not being good enough. So you can set that aside because you everyone is equally loved by our creator. We're all equally deserving of love. And so if we feel bad about ourselves, it's something that we can correct. We need to understand, well, this is something I need to actually look at. It's not like if I feel like I need more time out, that there's something wrong with me. And there we all go through that really soulful stage, that dark night of the soul, where we're trying to discover who we are, and we actually need it during that phase a lot of time out.
Right.
I can remember going through that and spending a lot of time. And I think that's a time often when I know, especially I see it more in women, uh, just because it doesn't mean it's not in men, but uh, that you might get sick. So you have to give yourself time out. That's what happened to me. I got so sick I couldn't work anymore. And actually it was interesting because it all worked out. I had this belief that I couldn't survive without my job. So then I got so sick I couldn't work anymore, and everything worked out just fine. And it really, it's kind of like you start scratching your head and saying, wow, this was
Right.
easier than I thought it would be.
Right. Following your heart, following your inclinations, following what is of interest to you in a healthy way, of course. In a way, it is that simple, that easy, just to keep remembering that the path is always kind of being laid out. And if you're not sure, be patient. Maybe that's what you're learning. You're learning how to wait and kind of rest and go a little slower, like Jane was saying.
And connecting all the time, connecting with that truth in your heart. Because if you do, and if you clear any blocks that are in your heart that might be kind of preventing you from really opening it, um, then you can see who you are. You can see the truth of your uniqueness, and that you are loved, and that you're deserving of love, and that you're on a really a miraculous journey.
Right. And that just a couple elements I'm going to touch on as we're getting close to concluding here on this external elements of this wonderful wheel that Jane designed on empowering yourself to realize your dreams, this coaching wheel. Recreation and play, just to see what that is. That might be playing with the dog, like you may have seen one of our dogs there a moment ago.
Yeah, she was just here.
They like to play, that's for sure. So keep the play, which is very spontaneous, creative, open-ended. And
Go bowling, whatever it is.
yeah, just shake your body. Just
Yeah, dancing is
dance,
great. Yeah.
listening to music, and kind of just free flowing on that. And I like to play tennis and maybe sports that you enjoy. So that build that into your life. Make sure uh, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, or Jane a dull girl, or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Um, Work and life purpose. The last little segment on this wheel of empowerment. Of course, that's a key to many of us, and some of us it may be rearing children. In some cases, I mean, it may be sort of a home-based life, a more familial kind of life, but it may be working out in the quote workforce, or getting your own job, which Jane and I did as coach healers years ago, and developed a lot of
Creating our own work,
being a
not
creator.
yeah.
So that may become your own business, or being a creator sort of more independently, or just in a business environment where you feel very vital and alive and fitting in well. And that may change over time. Um, our purpose formula is using those gifts and skills, the things you like to do. It's actually so evident, it's kind of hiding in plain sight. What do you like to do? How could you do it in the world? Just start from
that
there and go
that you're
step by step.
what do you enjoy you're that you have a natural inclination towards also,
Right.
because you
Yeah.
it's helpful to, because you're given gifts in your life to
Yeah.
use them.
Yeah. Some people get a little off base and kind of, do some imagination. I wish I were really a great whatever. And it's really not in your wheelhouse. Not that it's not, you don't admire people who do that, but what are things you actually are good at, are more natural to you, or things that you might be interested in that you are really drawn to, that you could learn easily? Because the things you're good at, you learn easily. You really are keenly interested and easy to devote to them. And yeah, life can get in the way and your priorities can get out of balance. But once you do, this is what you enjoy. And when you enjoy that, how could you apply that? And it's so natural that it's often missed, hiding in plain sight.
hmm and our purpose evolves too as we evolve. Like
Right.
when we decided, I was an architect and Phillip was an educator, and we realized that it wasn't ultimately where we wanted to be, in that form at least. And it wasn't like all of a sudden we became you know we became directors of a nonprofit organization and had this real mission. It evolved over time, and it still is evolving. All of us are evolving. Foxy is not doing too well. Quiet, sweetie. um Anyhow, I think that's important to realize too, that it is a journey. When you look at it, just keep looking at, well, where is my next step in all of this? or steps. What can I do to bring this most into balance and help me with my intentions of where I want to go with my life. And the purpose of a wheel, I mentioned it just briefly at the beginning. Something like this, it's a tool for achieving clarity, more clarity, because it's so easy to become confused. Like, now what? I'm not sure. There are so many things going on. I'm not sure where to focus. And the ones where you need to really put more attention on them, even if it's just a little, start with your intention to put a little energy towards them, and it'll start. It's like planting seeds. They'll start to grow. You have to nurture them.
Mm-hmm. And one way to nurture further is we do have an upcoming webinar next Tuesday, or there'll be a replay depending on when you see this. Tiny URL.
Yeah, day after tomorrow, Tuesday. It sounds like next Tuesday sounds like it's way far away. It's just actually coming.
And a tiny
right
URL to get there to opt in for free at tinyurl.com/soul-empowerment. So that's coming up, or you can watch the replay. And I think you'll really enjoy that. If you enjoy this subject, we'll go deeper into it on that.
Right. And more into the stages of spiritual growth that I referred to, because there are specific stages that we go through on the journey. And when you can understand that helps to produce clarity too. Like, oh, here I am, I'm in this stage and this is my focus. And then as you move to the next stage, you have another focus.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that is a wheel for empowerment. A lot of different pieces, I know, to put together, something you can kind of reflect on, maybe go back and look at that wheel, or join us on the empowerment free webinar, or our coaching program coming up June 15th. I'll put a link on there. That's tinyurl.com/HOL-coach, tinyurl.com/HOL-coach, a link on the web and the Facebook page. I mean,
it's HOL-coach.
Oh, HOL coach, tinyurl.com/HOL, like holistic, HOL coach. Mm-hmm.
It's all in one word, and then.
Right.
Oh, okay. Good.
Well, anything else, Jane, we should add?
Well, one other thing that occurred to me is my general focus during the day with whatever it is that I'm intending to accomplish. My focus is to be in the flow with joy and ease. So I'm also, as I'm looking at these things, looking at how I can stay in the flow with joy and ease, because that really is, for me, the most valuable place to be throughout the process.
Right. Yeah, because we can get very stressed out and try to do all these things, and now we have another stressor that we can't do all these elements and so forth. And just go one step at a time. It's working itself out. It's a learning, it's a growth, it's a lifetime process.
Yeah, you're in the perfect place to take your next step wherever you are. And I think
where you are.
I still think of that too when I start to get confused, like what is happening? Well, you're in the perfect place to take your next step. And whatever you do, whatever step you take, you're going to receive some input from it. So don't worry too much about it.
Right. Yeah, get some
and follow
support.
Your heart.
Follow your heart, get some support, connect, and things will go well for you. Jane, anything else before we conclude here?
No, I think that's it.
So this has been the Soulful Living Show with Jane and Phillip Mountrose weekly here. And we enjoy being with you. And in this case, it was about empowering yourself to realize your dreams and that coaching wheel. And we come each week with a soulful strategy. Please share it with your friends. It's a part of our gettingthrough.org/holistic website, and our mission at nonprofit organization Awakenings Institute to make the world a more loving place where everyone's gifts are honored and nurtured. So have a wonderful week, everyone. Empower yourself.
Bye-bye.
Okay.